Welcome to ¿Qué pasa? HSIs, a podcast dedicated to everything Hispanic Serving Institutions. I'm your host, Doctora Gina Ann Garcia, bringing you the news on what's happening in HSIs. Join us as we explore the history and evolution of HSIs, culturally relevant and liberatory practices, current and emerging research with HSIs, and the policies that shape servingness. Saludos HSI familia, and welcome back to ¿Qué pasa HSIs? This episode launches at the end of Black History Month 2023, but it doesn't mean we should stop talking about being pro-Black HSIs and supporting Black students as part of our HSI efforts. I hope you will continue to have those conversations in your practice at HSIs and continue talking about the importance of complicating the H in HSIs, which means elevating conversations about Afro-Latinx people. Our quest to learn how to serve students that fall within the H and beyond the H continues, with weekly guests offering diverse perspectives on how to do this. On today's episode, I talked to Victor Davila, who is the Executive Director of Retention and Student Success at Lamar University, an emerging HSI in Texas. He has worked in higher education for over 18 years at public institutions in Texas. He has previously served in the capacity as a primary investigator, project director, and project coordinator at 3 HSIs. Mr. Davila has authored and or secured over $9 million in grant-funded programs, HSI Title IV Part A and Title V Part B, and Title III Part F. The emphasis of his work at these institutions has been college access, completion, and student success among underrepresented students at HSIs. Victor is a co-founder of the Alliance of Hispanic Serving Institution Educators, ASI, which has come up multiple times in this season 2, and he has served as the founding vice president and as vice president of finance and governance for the organization. Mr. Davila has also served on numerous community organizations that focus on college access for Latino students in Texas. He is active in the HSI community and facilitates HSI Title V workshops on budget, compliance, and program management. Victor is a first-generation college graduate, having earned a bachelor's degree in history from Texas A&I University and a master's degree in psychology from Texas A&M University, Kingsville. He's originally from Robestown, Texas. I have known Victor through ASI and had the honor of serving as editor for his co-authored chapter titled Considering Digital Technology and Innovative Learning Spaces as Structures for Serving at Hispanic Serving Institutions, which was published in my book, Hispanic Serving Institutions in Practice, Defining Servingness at HSIs. It was fun getting to know him through that process and talking to him more for this episode. He has a lot to offer our listeners, and I am confident that you will enjoy the show. Okay, we're going to go ahead and jump right into today's episode. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in Victor to the ¿Qué pasa HSIs table. Victor, thank you for taking the time to be here today on ¿Qué pasa HSIs, where we talk about all things HSIs.
All right.
But before go ahead.
Thank you for inviting me and thinking of me to be a part of this. This really means a lot.
Oh, you're welcome. Of course. I'm happy to have you, and I'm excited, and I think we have a lot to learn from you today. So thanks for agreeing to be a guest. So before we jump into HSIs and learning and with our, with you and with our listeners, I want to learn a little bit about you and make sure our listeners know a little bit about you. So tell us about your higher education journey from access to completion. How'd you come into higher ed? Because you're still in higher ed. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Man, to be quite honest, it was an accident to be in higher ed, to be quite honest. I was in the nonprofit world working as a director of a substance abuse and STD clinic. So it was in Kingsville, Texas, and then the Bush years took over as governor, and he started slashing social programs. And then I was like, well, I need a job because it was grant funded. So there was a job at A&M Kingsville, Texas A&M Kingsville, and I just applied. And then all of a sudden I'm working in higher ed. And I'm just like, okay, it's a transition. And the funny thing was, you're going to probably ask me later, is how did I get into, HSI Title V grants? Well, the first day I walked into my office, the dean was gone. She left a manila envelope on my desk saying, since you know how to know everything about grants, so here, we just got funded. Can you read this and, tell me about it and how do you think we can implement it? And it was a Title V cooperative.
Wow.
Wow. Welcome to Title V. I always tell that story when, when I talk to colleagues and new people, like, how'd you get into Title V? I was hired for one thing, and it just kind of first day, read this proposal, tell me what you think about it. How is it going to get implemented? Wow, that was a short learning curve on that one.
It literally landed on your desk.
Literally.
Yeah.
Before I even got to my desk, it was waiting for me. So I guess that was, the world saying, you know what, this is going to be your life in higher ed.
Yeah, the universe said, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So from there, I was there for, I think, maybe 7-8 years, and I collaborated with Dr. Guerra, who she was a mentor to me in the grants world and the HSI world. She was, someone who was a colleague of David Trujillo, and we'll talk about him later, I assume. And they just got me working together and just kind of learning the world of TRIO grants, Title V grants, and just wondering, and I really wasn't aware of what an HSI was until, I read the grant. I said, oh, we're an HSI. I didn't know there was a designation for that. So that was like 2004. So I'm coming to a 20-year anniversary of being in higher ed. So that's kind of, I was thinking about, I was like, oh my God, I've been in higher ed for a long time. It doesn't seem like it. It's just gone by so quickly. And, for the most part, I've been having fun in higher ed because, I remember I always take the viewpoint of the younger version of me coming into a university setting and coming to get a 4-year degree, how I was lost, how there were no resources. There were just a lot of barriers, to be quite honest. And, I come from a little small town called Robstown, and it's right outside of Corpus Christi. And people in the area just consider, any kids from there, lost. You're from Robstown, you're not going to amount to anything. You're not going to even barely graduate high school. You're not going to even probably go to college. You're maybe best at a community college. But you know what? Most recently, a friend of mine from high school, he was your Secretary of Education. I don't know if you know Noe Ortega.
Yes, I do.
He lived across from town from me. So we're from a little pueblito. So, it's been a journey because, we, like 8 of us went to Texas A&M back in College Station in 1988. And I remember, wow, we we are in a different world. And they told us, you know what, we're so happy that you guys are here, because they had a separate orientation for minorities. And they said, we have a whopping 7% Hispanic enrollment. And now they're an HSI. It took them, 30 something years to become an HSI from that point. I was like, that's a long journey. But anyway, I knew being at that school was something that not a lot of kids like me go to. It's just, only, I guess, students who are really taking school serious or whatever. But I just thought, what, everyone was going to the University of Texas at the time. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go there. Everyone's there. I'm just going to get in trouble. I'll go somewhere. There's nothing around there. There's no city. They only have cattle and sheep and nothing. So I was like, I'm going to go there. And it's so friends, yeah, let's go over there, see what's going on over there. Man, worst decision of my life. I got in trouble there too. So it didn't matter. But I met, I'll be honest, I met a lot of Latino, Hispanic students there. We're in the same boat, and I still remain friends to this day with many of those students that I met my freshman year. And, we still hang out. There's something to say about an HSI versus, a tier 1 school. An HSI, it brings like-minded people, and you kind of have less harder time, I would say, about just feeling welcome. And I was there for maybe a year, and then I came back to finish at Texas A&I, which is was basically an HSI back then. And but it's a journey. And I always remember how it was, how I felt. And when I think about the programs that we do, the activities, and all the different campuses I've been at, I always look at that viewpoint. We don't know all these students. We don't know they're from the big city, small town, the barrio, whatever. But we need to make them feel they have a safe space, somewhere where they can kind of talk to someone and feel, hey, you're like me. You're not some educated guy or who doesn't understand. So I get this. When I was working in the Corpus area, they said, hey, where are you from, sir? I was like, well, I'm from around here. Like, from where? I said, Robstown. They said, nah, man, you're not from Robstown. I don't see any tats on you, and you're not this, you're not that. Stereotypical things. And they say, let me see your ID. they would ID me like, hey, we want to make sure you're not lying. You're just trying to fit in. If you're just BSing us, that you understand where we're from. I say, yeah, I understand where you're from. I'm probably from a place worse than where you're from. So it takes anyone and any type of person to come to school, and it's just about desire and what kind of passion you have. So I always kind of think of that. I always think about my journey working at a higher ed institution. It's a big responsibility. I take it because I want to help as many students as I can. And if I don't do that, I don't feel like I'm doing my job, because there's always a student out there who's just like me, or like a friend of mine or my cousin, that, we all feel lost and we all want to feel included. Not everyone feels included in higher ed, because for me, for whatever the reason is, and sometimes it's about, I don't think it mirrors who I am. And if they find a place to come and do their homework and just hang out, you know what? If that's what it takes, well, then that's what it takes.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to take you back to no, I wanted to know how you got into college, and then you went there, right? Like I want to know that story too. And it sounds like you said, what, 1983 you started college?
88.
88. Okay, sorry. Ooh, I was trying to take you back even further. Okay, 88. Now, my point where I'm going with this is pre even HSI designation, right? Like there's not even an HSI designation there. So you can't even say like I went to an HSI, yet you're describing like these experiences you had even interacting with people who were Hispanic, Latino identified, right? And or from same places or similar places as you, yet the institution wasn't an HSI. But if we think about the evolution of HSIs, they kind of, they're sort of grassrootsy, right? Like that they, not even sort of, they're grassrootsy. The movement is a grassroots movement. Mm-hmm.
And the people I met there, and I think, one of them, he was the one I co-authored the chapter with you, Dr. Rick Montelongo. He was a year or two older than me, or up in class. There was this organization, it's still there. It's called the Committee for the Awareness of Mexican American Culture, out of their student center. And they had like a welcome for freshmen, Latino students, but it was open to everybody. And that's how I met a lot of my friends there that I still have as friends. So I find that, a student org that kind of cares, that's real, is makes a difference. And I feel that that's one of my experiences, and I really feel loyal to that. So when my little cousin's daughter was going to A&M, I said, hey, get involved with this. And then she became like, I think, the president when she was during her tenure over there. And I was like, and it was beneficial for her also. But, I encourage, student organizations, especially that, whatever your interests are that makes you feel at home, welcome. And that's where sometimes we lose students, as you know, because they just don't feel included. They don't feel embraced by the system. And sometimes you just have to make sure they understand they're kids just like them. And no matter who you think you are, there's going to be someone just like you on campus. It's just a matter of connecting with them.
Absolutely. And student organizations, if we want to talk about grassroots, ways to support students, student organizations is like point number one, right? Like that many of us found place of belonging, sense of home in student organizations. And I think about that a lot as far as like HSIs and like, how are they supporting student organizations? Because that's a place that people, servingness happens, and that's grassroots, right? For students to create those spaces to serve themselves, which is, we know what happened before we started getting Title V and Title III and NSF, grants to actually create those programs, right? Like students were doing it themselves. We were doing it ourselves.
Yeah. And you know what, I'll share, I'm here at a new campus, Lamar University in Beaumont. And this is, right next to Louisiana. And a lot of people say, where you at? Beaumont, where's that? But it's an emerging, we're at 22% Hispanic. And as I got here, Dr. Hector Flores said, hey man, I started this grassroots organization it's called the Latino Society. And it's just a bunch of Hispanic students, just hanging out, getting to know each other, be a support system, because, there's really nothing here on campus that is geared to them. So we just decided, we're going to try to support them as much as possible. And since I've only been here since January and this past May, they had an awards banquet for them. And I said, yeah, I'll go, I'll participate. And I joined to be part of their mentoring program also. And someone asked me, so, in your previous institutions, did you have these awards banquets? I said, yes, they were just called honor banquets, not like a Hispanic one. It was not separate. It was just a banquet. And it's like, oh, I was like, because like 60-70% of the population is Hispanic in an HSI, in a more natural HSI. So, you don't separate it. But at an institution where we barely have any, it's good. It's a good motivation. And, he also organized a banquet the next night for the Asian student population. And that you'd think, well, Asian is like, yeah, we have students from India, China, Southeast Asia, Middle East. So, that was the first time anyone had done anything for them. And I was just like, wow, okay, this is real. This needs to continue. And the whole thing was not paid for by us. It was donations from the community, the restaurants, the businessmen, businesswomen. So, and they did the flowers, they did edible arrangements. And I mean, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see that. But that's the difference. I'm kind of learning right now, being in an emerging, you have to be more intentional. You have to be there thinking about what are the student needs? How are you building capacity for these students? And that's something that I'm kind of working with them. I'm bringing my past experiences and they're bringing me, okay, what are the needs, or how do we, try to reach out to these students to make sure we don't lose them. So it's been fun. I've only been here 6 months, but I enjoy the impact that I see, that, little things make a big impact on campus.
Absolutely. As somebody who's at an institution that only has 3% Latinx students, I could tell you exactly the same, right? Like, and who comes from HSIs, right? Like who comes from California HSIs. And like you said, it's almost like the water we swim in when it's super diverse and all these things, graduations, cultural graduations and cultural months and all those sort of things are just not natural. Carne asada on the quad. I mean, that's like a Monday, whereas here it's like, we have to think about those things, so yeah, it is, it's a process. It's a process to do these sort of things. So you got to start to get into this a little bit, but I want to go ahead and pose the question. So you basically said that you didn't know anything about HSIs, yet there was it was literally plopped on your desk that said, you go implement this HSI grant. So tell us about your servingness journey, what I call servingness journey, right? How did you come to understand HSI and servingness and, that being 20 years ago to where you are today. What was that? What was that? What does that journey look like? How have you gotten to where you are now in your knowledge around HSIs and Servingness?
Well, it was just like, getting that HSI grant. It was just all by happenstance. And, thinking about what am I going to do? What is the student population? How am I going to implement this, or how is it going to be targeted, and how do I help? And the way I kind of see serving is, like I was mentioning earlier, is like, what about me? What about how I felt? How do I make the institution understand it's not just having the students enrolled, it's how do you make them feel comfortable? How do you build a framework to make them feel that this is somewhere where they belong? And it was a process for me, I'll be quite honest. In the beginning, first I was trying to figure out what this grant is all about. And then I just started seeing how the students were reacting to some of the activities. And the activities were, kind of rudimentary back then, was just a tutoring program, a mentoring program, supplemental instruction. And that was basically it. And then we needed a space. Yeah, we could do these activities, but where are the spaces? How do we get them involved? How do we feel that, there's already existing, student services or student success spaces. And by kind of creating something that they feel that is welcoming. And a lot of the students, we targeted every beginning of each semester were our minority students, not just Hispanic students. And we try to say, hey, come on, this is something we have here. Free printing. You could take a nap. We have a couch. We have couches here. We have all these free things that you can't go to that other space, and they're going to make you swipe in and do this, do that. So it's just trying to build, I guess, in a sense, family. Sounds kind of cliche and all that, but it's true, because many of the students that I first started my career in, I still keep in contact, because we just built this friendship and families, because they were from little pueblitos from around Texas coming to the big city of Corpus. So I understand that concept, being from a small town going to a bigger city and in a bigger campus. And they were at first intimidated. And then, you know what? I understand they needed a job. So we help find jobs, we help create jobs for them with our grant and just with some institutional money. So they were not working at a fast food joint till 1 o'clock in the morning or at a bar. And that was important to build that, interest in school, just being there, just being part of the culture of being a college student, not having to work about paying bills, outside of, financial aid, which is always rough. And I think that's part of how I've kind of then realized, being HSI and serving, that's something that we really need to be intentional, not just implement a grant and here's some money, but you have to put some feeling into it. How do you build that capacity to actually just have them, the students feel wanted? And, working with a faculty like yourself, hey, there's opportunities for you to interact, have some research projects with our students, because you know what, you need to understand where they're coming from, and they need to understand where you're coming from. You may have a similar journey, you may be different cultures, but the journey's the same. So that's how I kind of started. And I worked at another 4-year down the road, and that was kind of different. That was more with the POHA students. Those were graduate students. It was like the first round of POHA grants, and that was quite different and similar because of there was no infrastructure, there was no student success in a sense for graduate students, because you're a graduate student, so you can figure out, how to study. Well, sometimes you haven't been in school for 5-10 years and you're coming back for a master's, or you want to go back for a doc, and you sometimes forgot, APA, I don't know that. So building the resources for that, what kind of tutoring areas or just resource areas. And then I transitioned to my previous job, was at a 2-year. Now that's a completely different animal working there. because the students are a bit more lost in the sense of, do I really belong here? Because I just came out of high school and I have to go work. I have to have a full-time job. I got to support my family or my brothers and sisters versus a person who's at a university. More or less, their thing is, I'm in college, at a university, and I'm just living in the dorms. I'm doing this and that. But students at a 2-year, they have a little bit more financial and family pressure that they have to deal with. So it's tough to have them on campus more than they need to be, because they just need to, you know what, I need help with this or that, or I can participate in that, but you know what, I got to go to work. I need a place to study. I need to do this quickly. Give me a nice, comfortable place so I can come and do my homework, save it, or meet my tutor or my faculty and get it done. And then I got to go take care of my son, my daughter, or my little brother, my little something, whatever, cousin. It's all family. They are in a rush, as you know. They're parking lot students, as the saying goes. So it's a little bit tougher to, provide services for them to stay, because they want to stay, but they can't because of family pressures, family issues, and they need to support themselves and their family. So I think those are like kind of two different, I guess, trajectories that I've noticed, that it's tougher working in a 2-year. As maybe I'm wrong, but it's tougher because those students need understanding and trying to figure out if they're actually doing the right thing, of having to leave early, you have to be creative in trying to get them involved. It's tough. It's really tough.
Absolutely. So it sounds like your journey to understanding HSI and servingness was somewhat intuitive, right? Like you had to go with your gut, your cultural intuition, your ways of knowing to know how to serve students without even, and I'll be honest, I've critiqued that sort of process, right? Because I even wrote my love letter to HSI grant implementers for the ASI journal, and was like, y'all need to access, HSI research. That was me as a researcher saying, are y'all reading this research that we're doing? Yet the intuitive servingness journey is valid, right? Like everything you just said is like your journey has been to really just dig down and say, what do these students need? What do our students need, right? That's servingness, right? You don't need a book to tell you that. You need your heart and your mind to say, I'm willing to roll my sleeves up and serve students, right? Which is what it sounds like you have been able to do, which I think is commendable and absolutely valid.
And the other piece that I've learned later on, and part of my journey, as you say, is and you brought up Melissa, and she has a great program for helping faculty and staff. And we always kind of concentrate on our students, but let's not forget about the faculty and the staff that need to help to understand, these students are, X, Y, and Z, but the students need to understand yourself also. You have to open up a little bit and not just be, that teacher from high school just saying, I'm here to get this assignment, let's go. Sometimes they need that little extra, I can talk to this person. This person is a little bit more approachable. And I think a lot of the times, this is the most frequent question, and I know you probably get it, is, I'm afraid to go talk to so-and-so because, I don't, that person's a faculty, that, my professor. Say, you're human. They have the same blood, just like you.
Yeah.
And I go, you'd be surprised. Just go talk to them and see what happens. Invite them over to, and when I was at Del Mar College, the 2-year, I go invite them over to the STEM Center, and I bet you they'll come, because tell them that we have free coffee too.
Yeah, for real.
So
that matters.
So the cool thing about it, some of the faculty started saying, so what's going on there? We're hearing this buzz of all these students getting together after class to do their homework and all that. So yeah, we have some new areas, and we're doing this, and we're offering free coffee. We put a spot, where they're not going to mess up any like desktops or spill anything on equipment, so they can sit down, have some coffee, some water, and some snacks if possible, if we haven't. And then all of a sudden, some of the faculty would come and drop off some water, or those K cups. And I was like, okay, I think we're making a difference. I think we're making some headway.
Yeah, for sure. I actually was recently on a panel with an alum of an HSI, and she talked about how her day was often focused on how much food she had, right? How long she could be on campus was determined by how much food she had, right? And that's real with students at HSIs, right? I was like, dang, that's powerful, like she said, I planned my meals. I can't afford to buy food on campus. Food on campus is expensive, even at HSIs, right? Like we ain't accounting for the fact that our students are low income and charging them less for food, although we should. But when spaces provide that servingness, right? When we're creating spaces that even coffee and some snacks will make a difference and allow a student to be engaged longer, which the research tells us that the engagement matters, right, for students to be successful. So those are all the things we have to think about, right, at HSIs, and the kind of students we're serving and what their needs are. It seems basic, but how much food you have in your backpack matters of how long you can stay, right, and how we can better support students as institutions.
And speaking of that, in my previous institution, right before the pandemic, shut everything down, they were just getting a food pantry off the ground. And as soon as they got food, it was gone. And the local, grocery stores were, seeing that happening. And at the other university across town, it's like, what? They started helping both institutions by stocking their food pantries. So I was like, okay, cool. Someone's listening.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we need to do more work around that, right? Around food insecurities and what our students are dealing with at HSIs. So speaking of implementing programs and services to support students, you have served as a primary investigator, a project director, and a project coordinator at 3 different HSIs. And in the Servingness model, one of the things we talk about is the need for HSI grants to start, right, get things going. But one of the things is also like you can get things going, but will it become institutionalized? So talk to us a little bit about that in your 3 previous in these different roles, your 3 different institutions, about the kind of programs and services you were able to launch because of HSI grants, that funding actually mattered, right? We want to know that. But then did it become institutionalized, and how did you do that? Because I'm sure people listening, they want to know, how do you institutionalize these grants? Because they're only 5 years.
Data.
Okay.
No, I'll go by each institution if I can remember all the things that are still existing. I would first off is Texas A&M Corpus. Our offices were in a triple wide trailer, and we're next to the coast. Literally, the water was across the street. So every time there was a storm, we had to evacuate. And for the CCRAA grant back in 2008, something like that, we got funded to renovate an old gym that they just vacated because they just built a brand new gym. So I was like, can we have it? But you need to pitch in a little money for it, because then you get rid of the eyesore of the triple YSIT. And at that time, I guess the stars were aligned. There was money from the state, so our money combined with that, we gutted it and made a very student-friendly space. And within that space, we created our tutoring programs and mentoring programs that still exist as far as the last time I checked. Because we gave them a name, and the name still exists. And then I looked on their website. I said, hey, that's still there, and that's not out of grant money. That's hard money. So if you can show that there is action going on with student activity and providing data and how retention numbers are, How are they persisting? That will work. That keeps them interested, especially it's all about data and the money. If you can prove that these students are getting help, they're going to exist. They're going to keep on. And then I think at A&M Kingsville, the thing that was when I was there was just a short time. Their problem was updating their labs and their equipment, and they just didn't have the know-how. And we just really worked hard in spending lots of money getting things updated. And so, I was asking a colleague that's still there, it's like, how are those places doing? Oh, no, they're keeping up to them with them, and they're using sometimes NSF or other type of funding to try to maintain and updating the equipment. So sometimes it's about building the foundation. How are they going to figure it out? Are they going to use hard money or find other different revenue streams to keep them intact? Because they look nice. The place looked like it was about to fall in, like ready for a paranormal activity movie. And some paint, some carpet, some new equipment in there. All of a sudden it brings new life. And at Del Mar, we did a lot there. I would say there was 3 spaces that are still in use that are all directed at students that the campus, after the grant was over, they institutionalized. They hired people to run them. They hired the student workers. They hired the staff and to be attached to whatever STEM. One was a STEM, one was an English area writing center that still exists, because they still kind of reach out to me, hey, what do we need for this? But that's good to see that because of the data that we showed them, that all these students were coming in, and it built a good rapport with upper administration. And you're talking about the faculty coming in and saying, hey, you know what, we really need this space. We can't just, like, the grant's over, what are you going to do? Just shut the doors? So they found money, and I would say also on the programming side, STEM advising has been one of the things that I would say Del Mar and some other coaching programs that they picked up. And the other previous institutions, I would also say some SI and some advising also. They just absorbed because it was a need. And if you show them that the students are coming in and the numbers don't lie, and you can show some results, they're just going to have to, because they will be losing money. I would say at Del Mar, they did not have a graduation plan on how to assist students in being completers. So one of the grants that we had with Texas State, it was we basically called it a graduation coaching program. And we were hoping for a 5% bump in graduation rates, or, students coming for help. And it took us 2.5, 3 years to get that 5%. Then for some reason, at the end of that 3rd year, I guess we built a word of mouth reputation, because the kids that were already graduating were bringing their friends in. Say, can this person, can you see them without an appointment? Yeah, if we're not busy, come on in. And then then that person brought 2 friends, then 3 friends. So, and they said, hey, they help you. They do an audit on your degree plan. They do this. They help you figure out what classes you need, and if you need financial aid, they'll help you with that. And all of a sudden, we figured out for every graduating class, we had 60 or 70% go through our coaches to apply to graduate. So that's pretty darn impressive. That was not even, we weren't even thinking of that. We're just thinking maybe 20% if we get really, really lucky. But, over 50%, man, that was just crazy. And the administration was like, how are you doing this? I don't know. Probably good customer service, answering their emails and phone calls. So.
Wow. But it's true. Customer service, I've heard from, I did a participatory action research project with some students at a Hispanic Serving Community College, and they'll tell you the spaces they don't want to go on campus. And it has to do a lot with customer service. They're like, well, they're rude over there. I don't want to go there. They ain't serving us over there. It's not even about the same culture, race, language, none of that. They're like, just be nice.
Yeah.
like the wildest things are like, no, this is servingness, right? So I think you're probably right.
It's the most simplest thing is, just be nice, just making sure that they feel that they're human.
Yeah.
And I'll follow that up during the pandemic. We had to get creative because no one ever checks their emails anymore. You know that. So we got a texting program, and we said, let's try this out. Let's see if they'll respond. And they were like, why did you get this? We're actually working even more remotely than we were in person, because they just want to communicate on the phone. And they're saying, are you for real? Are you really from Del Mar? Yes. And so let's make a Zoom appointment and get things done. My friend wants a Zoom appointment too. But it's just like you said, it's customer service. Someone responds because they're saying, so-and-so didn't respond. They never, respond. I left an email. I left a voicemail and da 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 da. And not everyone on campus had the capability we had with texting. So, we became the default help center. But it's all right. As long as the students are being helped.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. That's servingness. Sorry, go ahead.
No. And it's just, it's like, you go out to eat, you like someone who's going to be responsive to you. You can have some more water, but it's the same thing. You want to just feel like someone's paying attention to you.
Yeah. No one's written that article yet, but it sounds like there's a article in the making of like just serving students through a customer service approach. But you're absolutely right. Like they want to be served in that sort of way, and responding to them helps and matters. So thank you for that. And thank you for breaking out. You spent some time talking about infrastructure, right? The ways in which you've used the Title V, Title III, HSI grants, right? There's a bunch of different ones, right? The HSI grants to build infrastructure, but also services, right? And that's the cool thing about these grants is they're a very unique type of grant, right? Is you can build infrastructure and you can build service and programs and services, based on what your current needs. Go ahead.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think you're asking me about like, how do you get started with getting a grant? And, sometimes the first grant is about building the infrastructure. It's about, well, I like to I do the generic tutoring or mentoring or SI. Yeah, that's great. But do you have the space for it? Because campus is always, oh no, we don't have any space for you. We don't have the money for you. Okay, I have the money. We're going to tear this down. We're going to do this. We're going to create this. And then the next grant, we're going to fill it. We're going to put the programming in there. We're going to do, whatever. We're going to do faculty development, faculty center, or, students. So everyone you try to include everyone on campus. But, sometimes people forget, it's just about the activities for the students. But you just can't have activities and assume that they're going to create the space for you and kick someone else out. Sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm going to start small. I'm going to, renovate that science lab. I'm going to renovate, that liberal arts area. And what are you going to do with it? Well, there's going to probably be a USDA grant or another grant at, NSF or, another Title V that you can start filling in with programming. Because a lot of times I hear from colleagues like, I'm trying to do this, but I can't do it. I can't get off the ground. I can't hire so many people because there's no space. I go, well, you should always kind of consider thinking about some renovation money just to, you never know what you may come up with, or maybe there's a couple of rooms that just need a little TLC that you can handle. And if you handle that, well, they're going to probably give it to you so you could run your programming out of there. And it's just kind of, you got a future plan. And, that I kind of think of it, that's the lessons I've learned, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It's like trial and error. It was not like something that I knew. It's like, oh no, okay. You need to have space, and space is, very, very much needed no matter what campus you're at.
Yeah.
You're always fighting for that space.
Yeah, for sure. So going along with that, what would you recommend to folks who are trying to get grants, right? Because not everybody's successful. They try several times. One of our guests, Dr. Stephanie Aguilar Smith, she does research with highly successful grant getters and those who haven't had any luck yet, right? Like that's the reality is there is somewhat of a formula, right, to getting them. So what are your thoughts on that? What would you recommend to folks who are trying to get these HSI grant dollars? What's the formula? How do they get the dollars?
To be quite honest, it's sometimes just reading the instructions.
Oh,
we laugh about it, but sometimes there's people who apply. They're not even an HSI.
Okay, well, there you go.
There's one. The other one is, I would have to say, is there's a page limit. The most simplest things, to get you just for it not to be kicked out. The hard part is for it to be accepted.
Right.
Make sure your data is correct. Everything that they need, you have done correctly. Make sure your pagination's right. Make sure you follow instructions, competitive priority points. And they said, you know what, this is what we're looking for. To be quite honest, this is, we're trying to fund this, say, education. And you're writing about something totally off topic. And that's a great grant, but that's not your points. You're not gonna get your points.
Yeah, it sounds basic, but super important. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What are priority points? What are and I know each year they have different focus. Talk about that.
They usually have one or two competitive priority points, and sometimes they outline exactly what they want to hear from you. And if, as simple as it sounds, follow the instructions and you'll get your points for the most part. And if you don't, well, then you're already minus 10 or minus 5. That means if you score 100, you're still down 5 or 10 points because someone else read the instructions and just filled it out and did it correctly. And yes, there is a formula. It's how you write it. And depending, you kind of have to think sometimes, I'm not like 100% of always getting mine done, accepted, but I get some weird feedback on the comments talking about I didn't put a budget in. I was like, there's like 5 pages of budget. There's a section missing. I was like, it's right there on page 74, whatever. And I would have to say, for that formula, I would have to I recommend making it easy to read, making it where there's some places that you really need to make it outstanding, like bold and just, okay, it's right here. This section is being addressed. Try to make it where what you have to say is there, that they see it, because they're going through, I don't know how many applications, and they're scrolling through, okay, where's this section? Let me check it out. Let me see for the points. And if it's kind of starts looking like just a blur, then they're just going to pass on it. That's what I've heard from other people who've read or something. You got to make it stand out. Outside of the information that you have, visually, it needs to catch their eye. And it's like, well, what was that? I was like, oh, let me go back to that text box or this page of information.
Yeah.
So, there's probably like 1,000 different recommendations of what's the secret sauce. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, to me, it's following the instructions. And there's many times I've heard from people who told me, oh man, I forgot to do this or submit this, or this was, I didn't edit this. My editor missed this on mm-hmm. my submission. So before you turn it in, I know you've trusted someone to look over it, look at it one more time, because I know it all looks the same. And it's in your mind. You're reading it, but it's a page missing or a section missing. Yeah. So little things like that, and submitting it correctly, making sure you're doing it on time. Try not to do it on the last day. Try to do it maybe a day or two if you can.
as a grant submitter, never. We go right up to the deadline.
4:58.
Yeah, out right at the final hour for sure. But no, I mean it's valid, right? To just say like, yeah, like following the instructions, right? Those priority points. I don't know if there's a rubric. Is there a rubric that the Department of Ed shares that like people could see?
Yeah, they all the questions that they have for you to answer on the RFP, and they send you the reader's comments and how you score on each. So there's a section on each. Make sure you answer each section. That's a good point.
Yeah.
You know, like I would say the comprehensive development plan. They have all these little sections. How do you answer them is how they're going to give you your points. You know, like, what's your campus's weaknesses? What's your campus's fiscal stability? And if you kind of something real like 1-2 sentences, no, they want something with a little bit of meat.
Yeah.
So it gives you exactly what they want you to answer. You just have to put something together that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
okay.
You know, but at the end of the day, there's like too many submissions. There's too many HSIs fighting for a little pot of money. So not everyone, I mean, you probably have one of the best grants, but you know what? They're going to have to cut. And that's outside of, you know, I would say the customer service realm of being nice. But, you know, there's only a limited amount of money and they have to make tough choices. And, you know, I think I've been a victim of that once or twice, but I would also recommend when you do get your readers' comments back, use that as your guide and check to see if those are some valid points or you were just a victim.
Yeah. And it's the reality. It is a competitive process, unfortunately, right? And I say unfortunately because some campuses could really use this funding to actually do good work, but are unsuccessful, right? Multiple times unsuccessful. And so, you know, practicing and getting good and seeking out, you know, folks like you who run workshops on this kind of stuff, which I wanted to ask you about. You said you've run HSI Title V workshops on budget compliance, program management. What do HSI project directors need to know about these elements of the grant submission and the grant management once they get it?
Well, the submission, if they're in one of these workshops, that means either they were lucky or someone else got lucky for them so they could be at that workshop, because a project management is something that I'll share, you know, my experience as we started off the show with, you know, I walked into my office with a big envelope waiting for me. And I was like, I had no idea of managing any of this or what it was, had no clue. And at that time, you know, the HSI funding world was pretty in its infancy, early 2000s. And that's how I met David Trujillo and some other colleagues at a workshop. And it was like, hey, you know what? They don't know. They're not giving us great advice here. And we got to get together and help each other out. And that's how Aussie kind of came together. And it's difficult. That's why we do project management, because there's I've been through there and some other colleagues have been like lost, and we've tried to figure out how do we do this. So building, you know, to be honest, you have to build a network of colleagues and friends in higher ed, because you don't know how many times you're going to text or call or email someone, hey man, have you heard of this problem? I'm having this problem. Do you have a solution? I know someone who's been through it. Let me contact that person. So, you know, we always kind of talk about, you know, in our project management webinars or in person before the pandemic, we broke it down through budget, compliance, activities. So it's always about building a network of colleagues, to be quite honest, and learning when to reach out to your colleagues, to your external evaluators that are built into your grant, and then finally reaching out to your program officers for, you know, the last word of needing some help or, you know, advice on something. And we really didn't have that way back when. And I think now the Department of Ed has been much more responsive and much more friendlier than, when I started. And I give them a lot of credit for that. They've listened to us. We've complained. We've asked for help, and they're responding, which is good. But an organization like this one that I was talking about, this is where we kind of started as frustration of we were kind of just lost at sometimes, like we weren't getting direction. So we just kind of banded together and said, you know what, we need to build our own resource, which is us. And one of the tough things are budget questions. How do you, is it okay to spend that much money, or is it okay to move money? And just how do you work with your campus? Because and I know you've probably heard this before, when you get this pot of money, it's quite large. It's bigger than Trio. Everyone thinks you have a payday loan business, that you just need money. I can go to them. I need to buy this, and it's like, whoa. You because you need it doesn't mean you're going to get any assistance, because you have to be part of the grants. It has to be part of the objectives. And and I tell some of these workshops, I said, if everybody likes you on campus, that means you're not doing that great of a job, because you have to say no to people. And when you say no to people, they're not going to like you. Even though you explain it to them, you tell them, I can't help you because, this is a STEM grant. We're not doing liberal arts grants. and we can't justify, whatever, if I try to get this approved by this, they'll be like, what's going on over there? But, that's making the tough decision. And, sometimes those are very unpopular decisions at the end of the day. And, I try to tell people, don't get offended. I mean, you're just trying to make sure you're being a good steward of the money, a good steward to the campus and to the students and the activities that the grant was written for. And if some people don't like it, well, you know what? Oh well. If they can't fire you, well, too bad. You can't fire me anyway. So, you don't want to get in trouble, because the ones who can fire you, we'll get to you. You know what I mean? So that's always tough, and that's why I think building this friendship of network of colleagues that just are going through the same thing you're going through, or have been through, or in the future you will go through eventually, one thing or another. And that's tough when you start off and not knowing anyone. You're like, what am I doing? And many of these webinars now that we're doing, and in-person institutes, this is a similar response. Man, where were y'all when I got started? I didn't know any of this. I feel better. I don't feel like I'm doing something wrong, or I'm going to get in trouble. So, making sure your colleagues feel that they're not stressed out 24/7 for doing the wrong thing or the right thing. I think that plays a big role, I guess, in mental health, for everyone's mental health. We all need that assurance that you're doing okay. And, it's okay. It's okay someone gets mad at you, but you got to think about yourself being, because it stresses people out when they're trying to do something and they're being criticized, even though they're right. And that happens. Like we have one, I'll just say her name, Adrienne. She was I remember 2018 in Vegas, we're doing a project management institute, and she nicknamed herself La Preguntona, because she was asking questions. She was brand new. Why? How do you do this? Like, all right, so, and she just like made sure to keep in contact with myself and some other colleagues. And now, for being preguntona, she's in charge of it now. So
yep.
if you're listening, this is what you get. But it's good to see her and other colleagues that were very unsure of what they were doing, or now become leaders. And that, I think, is a awesome compliment to some of the things that we do, because if if they're learning, that means they know how it feels, and they're not going to want anyone to feel that way they felt. And that really, sucks, to be honest. And I'm saying it mildly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure everybody appreciated her asking so many questions, right? Because they probably all have the same questions, because everybody's trying to figure this out. I don't know if you know, but I was a Title V implementer back in the day. And same thing. I'm like, none of us know what we're doing. You get this grant, like it gets plopped on your desk. I at least was hired to do it, so I knew what I was getting myself into, but then didn't know what to do day one, right? I'm like, I don't know what the heck am I do, right? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not what I was trained to do. I don't have any skills in project implementation, grant implementation. This is a whole nother skill set. So, like your comments about needing the network, like going to those workshops, getting those networks, all that kind of stuff is so important, because this work is not easy. And I have to acknowledge that often as I'm writing, right, as a researcher doing HSI work, and I'm always like, do this. And then I have to like step backwards and say, it's easier to say do it than to actually do it. Like doing in practice and implementing in practice is hard. It's hard to change an entire institution.
One of the other hardest parts is hiring people. It's going to take a year. It takes a year to hire your staff before you can get one thing done.
Yep. And the Department of Ed is like, your clock is ticking. They wanted you to spend that money. You said you were going to be spending the money, and you're like, we barely got the person. It took 6 months to get one person, But it's true.
And, and I guess the reality of it, as you were asking about, what are the things about, when you write your proposal, is to be realistic. Don't say that you're going to hire someone in January when they won't award it till October 1st. Because it takes, I don't know how many months, I don't care what institution you're at, your HR will get to you when they get to you. It's going to take you at least 3-4 months to write the job description that they like. It's going to take a few months for, the haggling of salary. It doesn't meet our standard for the campus. And then you're at the IPR in March or April, having to write everything. We just maybe hired one person, if you even hired anyone to write it for you. So it's difficult in implementing that first year and a half. You're under the gun. To be quite honest, people they want the money, but they don't understand what it takes to spend the money.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. And you're right. Like a year goes by and all of a sudden you're having to report to the, back to the federal government. You're like, we don't even have anything to report yet. Right. Like we hired a person. That's success. Check the box, right? We did one thing we said we were going to do. We'll work on the other 100 in the next couple of years, right? Talk to me a little with that question. Talk to me a little bit about the accountability measures. That's one of the things I critique. I critique a lot of things. I think you know that. The accountability measures from the federal government, from the Department of Ed, on the process of reporting on your progress. Like, are there accountability measures in your opinion? Are they strong? Are they forcing us to do certain things that we shouldn't do? Or talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, it's completely different from working at TRIO grant. If you're familiar with TRIO, you have to see so many students or do so many things and you're held accountable. But since these are basically pilot program grants, it's hard for you to say that you're doing the wrong thing or the right thing, because it's about trying to figure out, does it work? There's not really a true measure besides, as we're talking about, if you're not spending your money and they see it, that is one thing they will come at. They will audit you. That red flag will go up and say, why are you not spending your money, Victor? You have $750,000. You should not have that much. What are you doing? That's one thing they will catch you on, is they will look at your drawdowns and say, hey, there's nothing going on, because they're just looking at your drawdowns. And that's why it's good practice to be very friendly with your business office or grants office, whoever does the G5 drawdowns, to make sure they're drawing down. because someone could leave the position who was in charge of that, and they forget, and you're just like, whoa, we've spent all this money, but it's not being reimbursed. So you have to be very careful with that. So I think that's one accountability they look at, as to see, is there any progress in your program? Is the fiscal part. Outside of the annual performance reports that we all wonder, do they really read them or not? To be quite
yes, I wonder that too.
And sometimes you'll get some random comment like, hey, can you tell me more about this? Like, oh, they read it. You get excited.
Right.
But I think number one is your drawdowns. And that's how they measure how well you're doing or how well you're not doing. So if you're in year 3 and you have like spent no money, you're in trouble. And conversely, this is a story I've heard, and it's pretty true. I ain't gonna name the campus. So I guess some people were not very experienced with it, and they just probably thought it's a money grab. So they drew down almost 90% of the money, I think, in the first few months. You cannot spend just, I think it was like what, $500,000-$600,000 in 3 months. So don't do that, people out there. Don't try to draw down, because that's one way to have the feds come to your campus and pay you a visit.
And it seems so easy, like, oh, spending money, that's easy. It's not, right? Most people need like the no cost extensions, because it's hard to spend this money. It is.
Yeah, of course, man. It's like, whew. Then trying to come up with, friends are saying, what are you doing? Oh, trying to figure out to spend this money I have before. It's like, come on, you could just buy a thing. No, you cannot just buy anything. You can. It has to be within the realm of your proposal. So it's very hard. It's very hard to spend stuff. And then, the funny thing about it is sometimes I remember the past going to administration. I said, hey, I need to spend, $200,000. Is there anything in this area? Just say, I'll pick on STEM. And STEM that maybe that you need to buy, that, the campus needs to refresh. And it's like, you get this, like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? Y'all know where the money is, where the gaps are. Tell me where the gaps are. And then it's like, oh my God, it's difficult trying to get rid of this money. And people, and sometimes people think you're joking, like you're playing with me. You're not really gonna spend that money. It's like, yes, spend it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a good thing to know. Thank you for answering that question, because it's part of the accountability, right? And the federal government, they want you to spend the money on the campus, right? Their institutional capacity building grants build the capacity. I mean, obviously you can't just spend the money on whatever, right? Like, if you spend the money on, like, your whole executive team flies to Hawaii for a week vacation, they're going to come to your door too, right? Like so it's intentional, and it's building capacity, right? Like, and that's hard to do. So thank you for that. So I want to go ahead and move into the network and how you built the network. So let's talk about the Alliance of Hispanic Serving Institution Educators, ASI, which you are one of the co-founders and have spent a lot of time. You've been a leader in the organization, and you've sort of alluded to already that you this came to fruition because you needed a network, and all your friends that were doing this work and sort of struggling to do the work needed a network, right? So y'all launched it. So tell us about it, the history. How did it come about? This was over, drinks at a hotel or something, at a conference. What how did ASI come to be?
A little bit of that.
That's how good ideas come about often.
To be quite honest, it was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I had met David and Moises Almendarez. I'm not sure if you know Moises. We were all just kind of getting to know each other there, and it's like, man, we need to figure out what we're doing. And then that's how the conversation just kind of started, as in like, oh yeah, we'll keep in touch and so forth. And I think the what really made this happen was we were in DC, I think, can't remember, 2008 or something like that, or six, and they had a rare directors meeting there, and we were there, and there was like Trio and all these other programs, grant programs there, and there was only one session for HSI Title V, one session, and we were like, okay, let's see what this is all about. And it was, I hate to say it, there were a panel. There was a panel. It was an all white panel telling us about at-risk kids in the barrio, because they were volunteering at a soup kitchen or volunteering at a homeless shelter. So all of our kids are at soup kitchens and homeless shelters. Is that the best the DOE has for us? Is that what we're taking home? That's not what we want to hear. We want to hear some best practices. We want to hear, how to overcome some of the things that are going on our campuses. And, I can't remember the gentleman from California. Oh man, he gave them an earful. I was just like, everyone just started clapping for him, because it's like, okay, this is enough. This is enough. We have to do something. And previously, David Trujillo had us come in for a small little best practices type of thing in Albuquerque. And it was like maybe almost 100 of us. And, it was just kind of just like, hey, what's going on? This is what we're doing, sharing best practices. So many of us who went there, were at that conference, and we basically stole a room that was empty in the hotel. We said, okay, we had a lot of people sitting in there. I said, okay, who wants to get involved and put this together? And some people raised their hands. Some other people were like, what are y'all drunk? What are y'all doing? So out of just frustration, that's how it began. And it just slowly, we just started talking, starting to meet, on the phone, obviously, because everyone was from everywhere, from California to the East Coast, and so everywhere in between. So we just started talking, and then it just slowly kind of just snowballed into what it is today. But just working together, figuring out what do we need, and those early years were rough. Having the best practices conferences, I don't know. I know you present a ton, but when you have to be volunteering to have like 5 sessions in a day because there's not enough people coming, that's rough. And not just one topic said over and over. Like one is like evaluation, one is budget, one is compliance. You're trying to be creative, and there's just a handful of us trying to put on a conference, like the old TV shows. You put on a hat. I'm the fireman. I'm a policeman. That's what it was in the beginning, and everyone was doing their best. I mean, we were all volunteers. We were just trying to think about ourselves and our colleagues, thinking, they're here, so we have to give them the best of what we have. And after that, people started saying, hey, you guys are for real. They're like, yeah, we're trying to be for real. We're trying to help. And we slowly, we need to organize, and we need to start building a structure. The president, vice president have elections and all that. But it was very rough in the beginning, I'll tell you that much. Not what you see now. Right now, it looks smooth compared to the early years. We didn't have a conference planner. We didn't have, all the fancy stuff. It was just us on the telephone saying, so are we going to order taquitos, or what are we going to do here? So it's evolved. And, and I was having a conversation with them yesterday about how are we going to evolve to the next level. And I don't think, sometimes we're here. I said, no, we still got to grow. I don't know to what, but I mean, we have to change. Now with this pandemic, it has thrown everything out of whack, to be quite honest. and we have to respond. We can't just stay where we were in 2019. We're 22, 23 coming up. How are we going to change? How are we going to keep up with this technology that all of a sudden is integrated in our colleges and universities? How is these grant practitioners going to figure out how they're going to compete for this money? As more tier one research schools are now HSIs, do they really need the money? No. Come on, man. Does the University of Texas and Texas A&M with endowments of $1 billion need an HSI grant? No, they
Speak
don't.
on it. Speak on it.
They don't, because they have money, to do whatever they want to do. But the small community colleges that are limited, small regional universities like I'm at, we're limited. That's where the money needs to come from. It needs to go there. And back to the organization is, we all come from different backgrounds of a 2-year, 4-year private, public, and so on. And I think that's given us, the flexibility and to show the need of our different type of students. And I think that's what makes us unique. We're not just one monotone type of organization that we're all 4-year researchers. No, we come from all different parts of higher ed. And I think that gives us, I guess, flexibility, I would say, in trying to address some of the issues that, what a 2-year has to face versus maybe 4-year in California and Texas are completely different. Different funding. Like, I'm impressed that they have all this financial aid help in California, and Texas, it doesn't. But it's good to know that that's out there, and maybe there's ideas that we can, share that maybe we can help implement on our campuses, and maybe find the money. But I think that's the organization. It's just been going back to it. It was a few tough years in the beginning, trying to figure out how to get everyone involved and how to keep the organization, going, because we have full-time jobs and it's a volunteer organization. And, David was very instrumental. He's the godfather of it, I would say. And, just trying to herd the cats is another thing I would say. Just trying to get us to get to do things. And it was really tough in the beginning because we had to volunteer we're going to research how do we get those. I know you've heard all the student stories. That was, how do we get the money for that? We didn't do that at first. And then we just said, okay, we have a little money. Let's try this. And it's grown from like 1 to 6 to 3 to, whatever the funding we have. And the other, I would say, is working on conference planning was tough. Working on reading all the submissions on presentations, working on, all the other things that it takes to get the conference off the ground. So it's been, I would say, I commend my colleagues and friends back in the early years who had to, I would say, we would all struggle and come to some arguments sometimes in discussions of how to move forward. But they said that it wasn't possible. And I think we proved them wrong. And it's still going. And I'm hoping it grows and develops into its next iteration, which I don't know what it's going to be, but I know it has to change, and it'll grow even further.
Right.
So, and now, we have the executive director, Yoli. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with that. And, and like I told her, it's like, hey, you can count on me, and probably some other people have probably expressed the same. So I'm very excited to see where this new direction is going to be going.
Yeah. Yo también. I'm like, me, pick me. I'll do whatever you want, Yolanda. I'm here. And I think she knows that, right? That a lot of us are like, we are here to serve you, right? Whatever you need to help this organization to continue to grow.
And I feel we're very, I guess the members or the council members, we're very accessible. You go to the conference, you just come and shoot the breeze with us and just bend our ear about whatever. It's not, we don't have this, aura of like, oh, you can't talk to us, you can't, whatever. No, we're there. We're in the mix of everything. And I think you'd be disappointed if you didn't come and tell us a complaint or tell us it's too cold or hey, what kind of next time order some other tacos or something. But we need to know stuff like that. They need to know that, what, this is what the audience needs versus what we're not trying to tell you, this is what you need, but you tell us what you need.
We need pupusas and not tacos. That's valid, Food matters. We've already said that. It matters to the educators too, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, we gotta keep that in mind. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that history and shout out to the Alliance of HSI educators for continuing to evolve, for hiring the first executive director. And I look forward to, I'm going to be speaking with Yolanda and with Paloma in an episode as well. So we'll learn more about ASI and get the name out there. So the final question that I have for you, I have a lot of questions, but we got to wrap it up. We got time limits here. But how would you summarize in one or two sentences? Some people go on for paragraphs, so feel free. But ¿qué pasa, HSIs?
Yeah, you know what? To be quite honest, I'm gonna have to say this before my kids disown me, Katerina and Jacob. If they're listening, this is what I do. This is I want to make sure my kids, everyone's family has a shot at being at a shot at getting a higher education degree. That's what I think, that's what my purpose is in being in higher ed, is being aware of everyone else, because I sometimes felt no one really cared about me. It's about time, like we need to care about, our families and friends and the strangers out there, that they don't have someone like us in their family. And it's true. And I try to pride myself in trying to be that person out there, saying, you know what, you may be from this other barrio, but I'm over from this barrio, but we still want the same thing. We want to be educated at the end of the day. And I really appreciate you having me on this.
And that's what's up with HSIs and with Victor Davila and with the work that we do. So thank you for sharing this time with me and sharing space. It's been a wonderful learning experience. I learned a lot, and I know our listeners did too. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. It was fun. Didn't know what to expect.
So fun. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead.